Welcome back, book lovers, to 5 Minute Book Reviews. Today I am reviewing Darwin's Doubt by Stephen Meyer, published by Harper One in 2013. The version I read was the 2014 version, which includes an epilogue. 540 pages, illustrated photos, epilogue, bibliography, endnotes, index, credits, the whole 9 yards. This is a fairly heavy book. I realize that I am a little bit behind on my reading schedule here. Unfortunately, I find these books late because I read in a lot of different categories and genres. But I did read, after I finished the book, I read a couple reviews on Goodreads. And the main review I read, which provided a stellar 1-star rating, was really kind of terrible and kind of angry, terribly negative. The comments were fun to read. The author of the review acknowledged that he hadn't read the book, and that he was basically mostly basing his review on the work of Nicholas Matsky. Well, this version of Darwin's Doubt that I read, that contains the epilogue, includes a significant portion in the epilogue where he responds to Matsky's review and does a pretty good job dismantling it piece by piece. Meyer's main complaint, it seems, with those who negatively reviewed his book is that they just didn't deal or take time to deal directly with the main point that he was trying to make in his book, which is that no one has really explained where all the life found in the Cambrian explosion happened to come from or how it got there. It just sort of appeared, and it doesn't seem to be any real explanations for where it came from. So he writes, thus Darwin realized that building, for instance, a trilobite from a single-celled organisms by natural selection, operating on small step-by-step variations, would require countless transitional forms and failed biological experiments over vast stretches of geologic time. And those things simply do not exist, despite the best efforts of scientists to demonstrate otherwise. They simply do not exist. And from there, Meyer just goes on and on and on, step by step, in an evolutionary time frame of 540 pages, building his case, building his organism, until the full creation is there, as if out of nowhere, showing us the beauty of logic and the beauty of life, and really dismantling every argument that could come his way. So my reviews are limited to 5 to 7 minutes, so I'm not going to take time to get into the details, which I would probably not explain very well anyhow. I just want to mention a couple things that I think were important about the book for those who love to read and for those who love to read this particular category, if your mind is open. First, this is an accessible book. I'm one that likes to challenge my reading skills, and this book, it did just that. I admit I read a couple paragraphs more than once, a few paragraphs more than once to get the gist, but by and large, this book is accessible to armchair scientists of the world like me. Charts and graphs and illustrations are helpful, and Meyer, I think, does a good job of using analogies to help readers get through some of the more difficult concepts. Secondly, he points out, the inconsistency of the world of science. That among scientists, there is not even a consensus. I mean, this is the thing that kind of really always blows my mind. In this book, he unravels the so-called evidence, the arguments of a host of theories. Now, look, we may not agree on every point, and surely the scientists that he unravels do not agree with him on every point. But I think that that's just the point, that even among themselves, they don't agree. When it comes to evolution, what is it? Is it long, slow change? Is it punkic? Is it epigenetic evolution? Is it self-organization, cladistics, evo-devo? I mean, no one really understands or knows the complete mechanisms, that are in place. And every time somebody comes up with a new one, somebody is there to dismantle it. It's not always the so-called, intelligent design people or the so-called creationists who are undoing these arguments that keep getting put forth. A lot of times they just get undone by other scientists of the same, ilk, so to speak. Third, quickly, this book is replete with references, quotations, detailed counter-arguments to the prevailing narrative of the world of science. I think this is one of the better parts of the book. I mean, this book's got just a a ton of notes and references in the back, bibliography pages. You're not going to be wanting for information or verification of the things that Meyer had to say in this book. Fourth, I like reading natural history books. I like watching shows on TV about animals and nature, and I'm always amazed at the diversity and how there always seems to be an animal who can do something that in the human world would require like DC Comics or Marvel. But when I watch these things or read them, I'm always bored because inevitably I hear things like Darwin, evolution, natural selection. And really, it doesn't bore me that these things get mentioned. It bores me because they mention these things as if there is no doubt, no uncertainty, as if these are settled, as if these matters are settled facts, as if they really know what these things even mean in the first place. So, according to Meyer, those terms really, a lot of times, are basically nearly meaningless precisely because those who use them do not agree on what they mean or how they function, if they function at all. Darwin, obviously, Darwin means something, but I suspect that if Charles Darwin were alive today, he would at least have the integrity to see the evidence and make logical conclusions, which is something that, the authors of our documentaries and writers of books seemingly are unable to do. There are plenty of people who disagree with people like Myers. At some levels, I think that, even I disagree with him. But what I cannot do, even if I cannot articulate it as well as articulate the arguments as well as his opponents might do, is write him off, as others have done, simply because they do not like his arguments that leave open the possibility of goal-directed intelligence behind what we see in nature. And I sense from Meyer that if he was presented with logical, consistent, scientific proof of something, that he will agree to it and concede the point. But as it is, he has not yet been presented with this proof, with this evidence, and therefore he has seen no need, to concede to it or to give, any credibility to it. I think when it gets right down to it, what people don't like is the fact that he is open-minded enough to consider other options. This is much like what we see in the media today with politicians that the media do not like. Funny how the same arguments that were in the same logic that's used against Meyer and people like him at the Discovery Institute to shut him down are the same arguments that are used against conservative politicians in this world now. These so-called opponents whose theories he critiques, whose arguments he uses against themselves, they have a philosophical commitment to materialism. In other words, their minds are closed. They don't even want to acknowledge anything beyond the material. To appeal to an omnipotent deity is to allow at any moment the regularities of nature may be ruptured, that miracles may happen. Richard Lewontin. And my take on this is very simply this. I submit that quite apart from the intervention of deity, the regularities of nature would have ruptured a long, long, long time ago. Come back again next time when I'll be reviewing a book about birds and singing and songs. And it's a great thing. It's called Why Birds Sing. And I'll look forward to seeing you back here. Don't forget to hit up my Goodreads. Check out some more of my nature photos on Instagram. Hit subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, whatever you want to do. I'm flexible. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here again real soon.